All right, let's talk about one of the biggest hurdles in calculus, integration. But what if I told you there's a way to stop memorizing and start seeing the solution? We're going to cover 3 simple visual hacks that will completely change the way you look at these problems. Let's dive in. Okay, picture this. You've studied for weeks. You feel ready. You get to the exam, you flip to a problem, and your mind just goes completely blank. Poof, the formula you knew just 5 minutes ago is gone. It's a terrible feeling, right? Well, if that's ever happened to you, you're definitely not alone. Here's the thing. The reason our brains do that is because we often learn math the wrong way. Think about your brain like a GPS. Memorizing a bunch of formulas is like trying to remember a long list of street names. It might work for one specific trip, but the second there's a detour, you're totally lost. What you really need isn't the list of names. You need the map. You need to see the big picture. And this leads us straight into what I call the formula trap. We convince ourselves that if we just memorize enough formulas, we'll be safe. But that kind of rote learning is really fragile. The moment an exam throws a curveball, a problem that looks just a little different, that whole foundation just crumbles. True mastery comes from seeing through the formulas. So what is that bigger picture? Let me break this down for you. It's shockingly simple. At its heart, integration is just one thing: finding the area under a curve. That's it. Seriously. All those crazy-looking symbols and techniques, they're all just different tools for measuring the size of a shape. Once that clicks, everything else starts to fall into place. So, this brings us to our very first and maybe the most important hack. See the area. This isn't some new formula to memorize. It's a mental habit, a little shift in your thinking that you can use on every single integration problem you ever face. And the best part? It takes like 3 seconds. Here it is, your new routine. Before you even think about solving, you're going to do this. 1, read the problem, obviously. 2, take just a second and picture the graph of that function in your head. What does it look like? And 3, after you get an answer, glance back at that mental picture and ask yourself, does this number even make sense for that shape? Okay, let's try it. You see an integral like this one. The old you would jump right into applying the power rule, right? But the new you pauses. You see 3x squared and you immediately think, okay, that's an upward opening U-shape, a parabola. Now you've got a mental image of what you're actually finding the area of. So when you get your final answer, you have this instant, intuitive gut check. It's a simple step that catches so many silly mistakes, like getting a negative sign where it doesn't belong. And this is so true. I know what you might be thinking. I don't have an extra 3 seconds in an exam, but trust me, you don't have time not to do this. Those few seconds of grounding yourself in what you're actually doing will save you from that 10-minute spiral of panic when you're just throwing formulas at a wall and hoping one sticks. All right, let's build on that with our second hack. This one is a lifesaver for one of the trickiest integration methods out there, substitution. I call this the lock and key. It transforms substitution from random guesswork into a clear visual search. So here's how it works. When a problem needs substitution, you're always looking for a special pair of functions. Think of them as a lock and a key. The lock is an inner function, the part that's kind of stuffed inside another one. And the key? The key is simply the derivative of that inner function sitting right nearby. If you can spot that pair, you've found the way to unlock the entire integral. Let's look at this classic example. Instead of panicking, your eyes should be scanning for that lock and key. Okay, what do we see? We've got a cosine function, and inside it is an x squared. That x squared is a great candidate for our lock. Now, what's the derivative of x squared? It's 2x. And look at that. The key, 2x, is sitting right there on the outside. Boom, you found it. The rest is easy. You set u equal to your lock, and the whole thing just unlocks into a super simple integral of cos u. No guessing required. Now, listen carefully. This is crucial. A lot of people give up if they don't see the exact key. They'll say, well, the derivative isn't there, so I guess substitution doesn't work. That's the wrong way to think. The right way is to be a detective. What if you see a multiple of the key? Maybe you need 2x, but you see 10x sitting there. That's a huge clue. It means you're on the right track, you just have to tweak the constant a little bit. Okay, on to our final hack. This one is for those really big, messy, intimidating integrals. The ones that look like a total jungle of functions. The technique is so simple, it's almost silly, but it is incredibly powerful. It's called draw to solve. You know what's interesting? The hardest-looking integrals are usually just a couple of simple pieces smushed together, kind of like Russian nesting dolls. The problem isn't that the pieces are hard, it's that our brains get overloaded trying to look at the whole thing at once. So the solution is, don't. Visually pull the pieces apart so you can deal with them one at a time. So what does this mean for you? When you get a problem that needs integration by parts, like this one, I want you to literally draw boxes on your paper. Put a box around the x. Put another box around the e to the x. Just that simple physical act of separating them clears up so much mental clutter. Now, it's not one big scary problem anymore. It's two manageable pieces that you just have to assign to be your u and your d. But which box should be u? Well, there's a simple visual checklist for that too. ILATE. You just run down the list. Does my problem have an inverse trig function? Nope. A logarithmic function? Nope. How about an algebraic one? Yup, x is algebraic, so x becomes your u. It turns a tough decision into a really simple process of elimination. So there you have it. This isn't a new list of formulas you have to cram into your brain. It's a visual toolkit. 3 completely different ways of seeing the problems, which will give you way more confidence than a cheat sheet ever could. Let's do a quick-fire recap of our new tools. So here is your toolkit. Number 1, the foundation of everything. See the area. Before you do any math, just picture the curve. Number 2, for substitution. Find the lock and key. Hunt for that perfect inner function and its derivative pair. And number 3, for the scary ones, draw to solve. Use literal boxes on your page to break a big problem into small, manageable pieces. Now, these 3 hacks are for sure going to help you conquer calculus. But the real takeaway here is even bigger. It's about learning a new way to approach hard problems in general. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What other challenges in your life, not just in math, could you solve if you just took a second to see them a little differently?